go ahead and introduce yourself and tell me what kinds of things you do, or what your job title is, and where you work, and how long you've been in Extension.
Okay. Bunch of questions there. I'm Brad Withrow Robinson, and I'm with Oregon State University Forestry Extension. I'm a county agent in the Mid-Willamette Valley, so a 3-county area. And I've been in Extension for about 20 years, most of it somewhere in the Mid-Valley.
Okay. What kinds of programs do you offer or do, or what kind of clientele do you work for?
Yeah, we work primarily in the Willamette Valley. I'm working primarily with family forest landowners who are in the valley or in the foothills going up into the Coast Range or the Cascade Mountains, and and some ag landowners primarily for riparian forest issues, and do programming about basic woodland management, covering forest health, planting, tending, thinning, things like that.
Okay. What can you tell me a little bit about your family forest owners, or just kind of describe it? Because we're going to do a little piece on audiences, and we're trying to kind of drill in a little bit about hearing the different audiences.
Family forest. Well,
or who your clientele, or who do you work with? What do they own a lot of acres? Do they live there? Or they don't live there? Are they young or old?
Yeah. I mean, so if we learn anything about our family forest landowner audience in Oregon, is that they're very, very diverse. So they range from just a couple acres. Forest deferral kicks in, I think, at about 2 acres. You can qualify for forest deferral. And so they range from just a couple acres that they live on, maybe on the very margin of the Willamette Valley, to having quite large acres and acreage in several different parcels that they manage individually or as a family for long term. It's everywhere, and their values, what they're managing for, also very diverse, as are their backgrounds. So it's the challenge is to get a group together who's interested in at a similar point in time and where they are developing and wanting something that wanting to gain a similar bit of information.
Okay. How have things changed since when you started? In terms of what have you done differently, and not necessarily with the experience, but just how things might have changed a little bit.
How things changed? Well, obviously, some of how we teach is different. I've gradually, or engage people. Certainly, some of how we reach out and connect with people. There wasn't, I'm old enough, of a time when we weren't using internet. It was all paper newsletters and things like that. Now we have electronic mail. There's this thing called social media. So I am not a leader in that front. And those, so we reach people and we give them information differently because of that. We're able to tailor it. If they call me, I can send them links or direct them to links on the webpage to give them additional resources on that topic, which was quite easy as opposed to them having to come in and me handing them a paper copy of that document, that how to plant trees document or something like that. I think we try to push it to a much more interactive, mixed interactive teaching classroom discussion experience and do more in the woods if we can. So at least that's for me personally. If I can do less classroom stuff and more out in the woods in an informal, less formal tour setting, I'd say that's how I've changed.
Okay. You talked a little about the life-work balance. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I said first problem is that word work or life-work balance, and we really ought to think of it as life balance, I think. And I see it as it's been a challenge for me, and I think it's going to be a challenge for Extension as an organization in the next couple decades. We've been successful because we've hired a lot of real type A people, and often baby boomer guys, and who defined life by work, and we've been willing to work sometimes excessive hours, and that's had a lot of benefits in many ways. But if that's the model by which we succeed in Extension and individually, professionally, I think that's a flawed model to go ahead with a younger generation of professionals who I think need to be encouraged and assured that you can be successful without giving up your life to your job. And so I think a good life balance that includes work, but I think is going to be important. And that we as an organization can make the cultural changes necessary to let that happen, because it's really built into our culture that we do this somewhat excessive work at times.
Anything else you'd like to add? You said you.
Yeah, there was
on
a
back.
story there when we were coming out of the mentoring thing that you did, and years back when I was just finishing school and getting into extension, I remember a discussion in my department, and some of the professors were getting feedback from students or younger faculty that they weren't getting the mentoring that they needed. And I heard this and was a little puzzled and said to one of my older professor peer friends, gee, I don't see that. I don't seem to have any trouble in mentoring. And Joe's comment was, well, that's because you ask. And so I thought that was an important thing, that we have some work to do as an organization to make mentors and make that acceptable and all, but it's really important if you need help, if you need answers, not help, but if you need some guidance, that you go ask. And that was apparently my secret to mentoring, is if I didn't know what was going on, I had no trouble asking somebody. So I think that was, I hope that we're successful in bringing our new people in and mentoring them well, and do it collaboratively on that. Seems you had another question here, and I'll step out of the frame to see if there was something else that
yeah, I'm skipping around because I wasn't sure what.
Yeah, that rang a bell for me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when I was just starting, how long it took a handle to get on the job. So this question about how long did it take to get a handle on the job, my first piece of extension was actually backfilling for another, so it was a temporary 1-year position, and there was a forest health, a disease problem that I'd looked at and didn't quite have a handle on, so I called my extension specialist colleague, and we went out together, and he explained a lot to me and helped me deal with the interactions. And I was saying, man, this is overwhelming. And he said, oh yeah, don't worry, in 2 or 3 years you'll have it all figured out. And I was saying, yeah, well, that's great, except this is only a 1-year job. so I pretty much gave in to feeling a little overwhelmed for that whole time. But he was probably right. It took a couple of years to really kind of know what was coming and gain some balance, some comfort in handling that range of questions.
So what about for like extension specialists who are at the university and who are supposed to work with agents? What advice would you give for them? I know Oregon's set up a little bit differently, but have you worked with extension specialists?
Oh, I work with my extension specialist colleagues all the time. Advice, I don't know that. I mean,
because they come from they come from the PhD background, and so a lot of them have never been extension or anything related before, and they're kind of plunked down into it.
Yeah, well, I think that's a lot of people come to extension from federal or state agencies and things. Probably the same advice as for fellow agents is listen a lot, go ask a lot of questions, find out what would be helpful in supporting us, because I will contact them when it gets too specific or it gets over my head, or I'm feeling that it's uncertain, or I'll double check with them. And the relationships that are real helpful are the ones who are responsive to me and help. Well, they help in a range of things. It might be me just being comfortable about the answer I'm giving, or maybe willing to go out and do a field visit or do some class training. I'm not sure that's real helpful for any of them, but hopefully you got some better information from someone else. Edit wildly, have fun. Was that helpful?
Yeah,
And it gives you